Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure a lot of you are getting tired of BuzzFeed videos, but this one is a little bit different. I got requested to make a response to this video, and if I'm anything, I'm responsive to you guys. I'm not going to be funny, silly, or any other synonym for that concept. I'm going to respond to these people on the only level that they can take seriously. And if they can't take me seriously, then I'll have to come to the conclusion that it's because I'm the word white. You want to dive into feelings? Let's dive into feelings. Stuff like this both depresses me and infuriates me, but it's nice to know that a majority of people don't actually think this way. However, the fact that this type of thing is being pushed in universities and on children, it disgusts me. It really, really does. It's just awful. So, let's get listening to possibly the most disgusting people on planet Earth. Take it away, BuzzFeed. I'm going to try and salvage something positive out of this train wreck.
So, when you see the word white, what comes to mind?
How do I feel about the word white?
Those reactions you just saw, those instinctive cringes at hearing the word white, the eyes rolling, the emotion elicited from the word white in the form of contempt, that's racism. That's racism in its most basic form. If I was asked how I feel about the word white, I would say, well, it's the name of a color, so it's pretty useful in describing something's color. Do you want to know why I wouldn't feel offended? Because they asked me about a word. They didn't ask me about people. But as we will see, the word white is pretty much interchangeable with white people throughout this entire video. You're judging me based on the tint of my skin. I don't take kindly to that. What would you say, and I know this is a tired tactic, but what would you say if I showed a bunch of clips of white people responding to the word black, and then they responded with distinctly negative reactions about black people? What would be your train of thought? Would it be, these people have an unhealthy attitude about an entire race, or, tough shit, black people brought it on themselves? Just a preemptive question. For the record, I would say the former.
Privilege, I think power, access, luxury.
Yes, Daisha, that's what an untrue stereotype looks like. I congratulate you, though, in ignoring the millions of poor white people in favor of a few rich white dudes. I don't have access to everything I'd like. I don't have luxury, at least if we're using it in the sense that you're using it. I'm sure you don't consider those earrings and that upper lip ring luxuries, am I right? Imagine a situation where you can only choose 2 out of the 3 following options: food, heat, and electricity. I highly doubt that choice has ever befallen you, considering your attitude about what luxury is.
A race. Some good, some bad.
That's all there should need to be.
Can't be critical of all whites, but there is a strong element of racism in white Australia.
Is Ken a person of color? Forgive me for being rude, but that's what it said at the beginning of your video. Also, the only strong element of racism I've seen so far is the cringy reaction your compatriots had to the very word white in Daisha's stereotyping.
I think of Iggy Azalea and Miley Cyrus.
That's relatively harmless, at least. Unless you're citing them because both of them were accused of stealing black culture in the past. Oh god, you are, aren't you?
White is a way of being.
You were asked about the word white. How do you feel about this word? And you come back with, white is a way of being. Okay, if white is a way of being, like Buddhism or something, does this mean that black people can be white? Can Hispanic people be white? What about Asians? That's the problem. You're trying to play this like you're just describing a behavior that a lot of white people just happen to exemplify, yet will probably answer my question, can a black person be white, with a resounding no. Also, it was very cute, that little glance at what I can only assume is a script.
Doesn't always mean skin color. It's a way of thinking.
Please tell me what the rules of white think are. I mean, are you serious? Are these people serious?
When I think about white, I think about maybe a group of people who I would love to be in harmony with, but don't always feel like they feel the same way towards me.
Arrogance, naive.
I would love to be in harmony with, but
Arrogance, naive.
That arrogant and naive bit was from later on in the video, but we'll be coming back to it quite often.
white, run, controlled system.
Do you want to know what systemic racism looks like and feels like? It's when something harmless that you can't control is considered a negative quality and makes you worse of a person. Perhaps it makes you
Naive.
It's when the very mention of the word, used to distinguish your race, is met with immediate thoughts of oppressive power and control, despite it not existing. Go ahead and point to the white people in power if they're actually oppressing you, which they aren't, but even if they were. Let's just say what you're saying is true, and there is systemic white supremacy. You are currently associating me with them. Someone who would extend an arm, someone who could offer a heart and a mind to your cause. But the truth is, there is no white supremacist system imposed. In fact, Asian people and white people are discriminated against in college applications simply due to their race. The things you're saying and the racism that backs them are being taught in universities. Yes, racism taught in universities. And yet, if I were to ask you to extend an arm, you would laugh and say that I have all the privilege anyway, what do I need your help for? You are what you critique.
Not understanding. They don't acknowledge what has happened in the past. They don't try to understand as well. They just push it off and say that it's in the past.
Don't listen to them, dude. Stop doing this to kids. It is perfectly fine to say bad things that happened are in the past and we can move forward. I'm not responsible for people who just happen to be tinted the same color. I'm sorry I didn't do enough to stop slavery. I was dead at the time.
What I think when I see the word white, first word that comes to mind would be privilege, arrogance, naive.
Want to know what word comes to mind when I hear you talk? Dipshit. Remember, this is the guy who says when he sees a white serial killer on the news, he totally doesn't think that all white people are serial killers too.
When we see a story on TV about a white serial killer, I don't automatically assume that all white people must be serial killers too.
But arrogant and naive is acceptable.
So there's just several things throughout the course of history that white people have taken advantage of.
Remember, we were talking about the word white. Notice how that completely disappears here. White people did bad stuff in history. Great. I couldn't find a more irrelevant point about the word white in my entire life. Every race has done bad stuff in history. If we hold one race responsible for bad historical things, then all races must be held responsible for horrible things they've done way back in history. Yet then, we'd be prosecuting those who did no wrong, and dishing out justice in the names of people who aren't victims.
Not all of them are like wallowing freely and shamelessly in their privilege.
Yeah, but don't worry. We've made some of them not as free and feel a lot of shame about their race. Yay, victory?
But it seems like the ones that are typically male.
And you smile all the way through that statement, don't you?
The further away you get from white, the harder life can be sometimes.
The further away you get from white, the way of being and thinking, or the skin color? You'll have to be more specific because all of these insane brain webs get hard to track sometimes. Plus, I've noticed that all of you seem to be from Australia and the US. Do the makers of this video think that your race necessitates that you were born in the country your parents or grandparents are from?
Controlling figures in my lifetime, in my mother's lifetime, as far back as I can think of, actually.
Think harder then.
There are things that I have to think about that they never think about, that it just doesn't even cross their mind.
Example? What does the word white have to think of that you don't? Oh wait, sorry, we're on white people now, my mistake. You don't have to think about anything. You make yourself think those things, but do you want to know what people think of me due to my race? That I get to think about now? In this very video?
Arrogance, naive. Arrogance, naive. Arrogance, naive.
When I'm called white, it feels like it's dismissing another huge part of who I am, which is that I am in fact a person of color.
Is it dismissing an entire other part of who you are, or acknowledging the icky part of yourself that you don't like? Is that why you want to be called a person of color, and not whatever specific race you happen to be in part? I think it was Native American. Unlike you, my attitude is different regarding my race. My race has nothing to do with who I am. Yeah, I identify as a white person, but that's simply because of how the genes were rolled. I take no pride in being a white person, but I also have no shame in being one. I, quite frankly, couldn't care less about the race of a particular person. I care about who they are. You are the ones concerned about what color code is on the husk. And you desperately don't want to have the white husk, because that one's bad for some reason.
They are the average person. They are just people in general.
You live in a country where white people are the majority. I'm sorry that more white people show up around you, or when people think of your typical person, it is of a white person, considering they are the most typical in that particular country. I'm pretty sure if you head on over to Japan and ask them to think of the average person, they'll think of someone who's Asian.
I want to say helpful, but only helpful so long as it benefits them.
Oh, shut up, Diet Malcolm X. If you have any white friends at all, then you either keep your beliefs hidden, or they are the biggest gutless cowards on the face of the planet. No one should take you seriously about anything, ever. So I won't. Racist. Hey, white people who did something altruistic, too bad. You're stuck with your self-interested, smarmy, naive, and skeezy self.
A set of values.
So it's a set of values, a way of thinking, a way of being, and a skin color. Can these people just define the word white to mean anything? Remember, still talking about the word, not the people.
Wanting equality without giving up any of the power.
Anyway, since we know you're talking about the people and not the word, please tell me what power I have over you, racist man who lives in Los Angeles. What power do I need to give up? See, the trick here is that I have no power. Most white people have no power. This man just wants white people who do have power to kneel at his feet and deliver that power to him because he feels he deserves it for being black. The deeper you go, the more sinister it gets.
I think privilege is really all of it, just the ability to be seen as a person, be seen as a
Naive.
person.
Whiteness is a construct.
You were asked about the word white, not whiteness. Since whiteness is a construct, what is whiteness? Can somebody please define this set of values, way of thinking, way of being, skin color that is also a construct for me?
It's in the best interest of the status quo for people like me to identify as white
Arrogance, naive.
and sort of let my Native American identity fall to the wayside. I'm still a Native American who's walking around on the earth. I might as well not be if I'm not going to own it.
And what? What happens next? If I don't own being a white person, do I need to accept that I have an incredible amount of
Arrogance,
and I'm fundamentally
naive.
due to my race? Is that what checking your privilege is? Because I decline. Strongly decline. I'm going to end this video with one person who appeared in this video who gets it. I'm sure they put this guy at the end to make it seem like this was their message the whole time, but it wasn't. I wanted to separate this guy out because he's not like those other people, from what I can see. Anyway, please sign us off, sir.
I believe you're white or black. Green, yellow, red, purple.